And our interview today is with our friend Casper Carstensen. He's returning to our studio for the third time now to share one more testimony about one of his incredible experiences with God. So, Casper, good morning to you. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. It's great to have you on board today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. Excited to be back.
Casper, I wanted to talk to you about a story that you once shared with me. A story of deliverance, a story where God himself, I believe, saved you from an extreme danger. And it has to do with dogs. Mm. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened? Where were you? What were you doing? And what happened?
Yeah, so I found myself to be in Romania. And I was out in the morning going for a hike. I needed some exercise. I needed to spend some time. And I just found this incredible walking trail, and to my surprise, I found this very nice-looking farm, and next to the farm there was a sheepfold, and you had just these hundreds of sheep all packed together, and it was my favorite type of sheep, the one with black faces, very nice wool, very cuddly, and I was just standing there and just looking how beautiful it was. You had these beautiful mountains in the background, all blue sky. It was such an incredible, warm, beautiful day. I was just admiring it and thinking, thank you, God, for this incredible, beautiful scenery. And just before I was about to take up my phone, I heard something coming running towards me. This was a pack of shepherd's dogs. This is a very big breed I think it's called Armenian Gamper. You can try and find the photo, and you'll see this is a very, very big puppy. They are vicious. They're literally trained to fight wildlife like bears, like wolves. They're very, very strong dogs, and they're very, very loyal, and they're very, very protective of the pack, being in this case the sheep's.
Wow. So these massive dogs are, running at you, and they pretty much look like lions. I have seen some of these dogs before online in some pictures. And I think that as far as shepherd dogs go, I probably think that they are among the biggest that they are. They are incredibly strong animals. So how many dogs did you see that were running towards you, and they were just wanting to chase you away and to bark at you? But was there anyone nearby, perhaps their owners? What was the context there for the dogs?
Well, I was completely alone, just out there completely by myself. And I didn't have time to count. I was, of course, in a very state of mind, being attacked, being very afraid. There were about 8, maybe 12 dogs, and they didn't just want to scare me. They literally surrounded me, and the intensity of the barking started to be more vicious and more loud. They started to show their teeth, and they also started to bite me. So I was bitten 6 times, and as I saw blood literally pouring down my leg, I had one thought, and that was, I have to fight. I have to punch my way throughout these crazy puppies. And then a millisecond after, it was like this impression came to my mind: pray, surrender this to God. And immediately I literally cried out, Jesus, save me, in a very desperate voice. And in that second, Joseph, in that very second, God slowly pulled away the dogs from me. They stopped biting me, they stopped barking, and they started to give me more space. I was completely surrounded by them. They were so close to me, and all of a sudden I got more and more space. And a few minutes later, 2 shepherds came running towards me, screaming at me in Romanian. And I'm gonna explain the intensity of this story just in a little bit, but I want to share a little bit about the power of prayer, because in my experience here and many of my past experiences, unfortunately I don't have time to share my entire testimony here. This will take about maybe 2 hours, but there's a beautiful passage from the Bible I want to read, and we find this in Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 10. Proverbs 18:10 says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The the righteous run into it and are safe. And this was literally, Joseph, my experience. As I prayed, I put myself on God's ground. I became part of his domain. He took this fortress, this tower of protection around me, so that the enemy could not do any harm to me, because I had asked God to protect me, and he was faithful, and he did that in that very second.
Wow. And what did the Romanian shepherds tell you? I mean, probably couldn't understand. I do not know if they would speak English or Danish, because you're from Denmark, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think that they were trying to communicate? And were they able to finally secure the dogs after this whole situation?
Yeah, I had one to translate for me. And what the shepherd said was he came out of nowhere, and also they couldn't understand that the gate was open. Because everything should have been locked. The dog should not have been able to run out from the facility. So they were all very, very surprised, and they knew exactly how dangerous my situation was. This was why they were running as quickly as they could. Because when dogs are being agitated, no one can separate them from the prey and from the dogs, except for the shepherds, except for the owner. And so the reason because they were running so quickly was they knew that if they would not manage to be there on time, I would be dead. So I've been trying to give Bible studies to a good friend of mine. I started to train him as a personal trainer, and we started to talk. And he's a private bodyguard. He has a massive trained Rottweiler. He has been working for the police. He has been doing different mission and activities with the Danish military, because he is such an incredible dog trainer. He knows everything about dogs and how to train them. And as I came home, I shared this testimony with him, and his jaw literally dropped. Like, he was like, Kasper, this does not make any sense. Nobody can separate you, because the dogs, they would be protective of the flock. They would see you as prey. They would literally see you as a vicious bear, and they would kill you. They would like shatter you to pieces until they knew that you no longer would be a threat for the pack. So he said the only one who can separate you would be their owner. And even the owner would have difficulties when they're so aggressive, particularly when they have started to taste blood and when they started to bite the first time.
Wow.
So what he told me afterward was, this, Kasper, is what we do. If we have an angry mob, a riot, then the leader of the group, or the police or the military, he will agitate his dog or her dog, and this dog will be agitated, and that will literally spread like wildfire to the rest of the dogs. Now they become aggressive, and this is where they start to bite and show teeth and become very aggressive, and it's very difficult to hold them. You have to have like very good training. You have to have like very strong shoulders to be able to hold fast your dog, and you don't want to let go of that leash unless you really have to.
Wow, that's amazing. They really become, vicious creatures, in that moment, that circumstance. And Kasper, look, when I am hearing your story, this is not the first time that I heard, but there's a Bible passage that comes to my mind every time that I listen to that story. And it is a Bible passage in one of the most fascinating Psalms in the Bible, which is Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is very special because it's a messianic psalm. It's one of the psalms that are dealing almost exclusively with the experience of Jesus, the Messiah, 1,000 years before it happened. And your story, I think, relates a lot to that story. I think that this experience you went through, I think that it's very similar to what Jesus experienced as well. So you can say that Jesus knows exactly what you have been through. And I will start in verse 10. And it says, upon you I was cast from birth. You have been my God from my mother's womb. So he starts acknowledging God's presence in his life since he was a child, similar to in your own experience. And then there's a prayer for help. Verse 11 says, be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help, like yourself. Many bulls have surrounded me. strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. We're talking about like wild bulls, similar to Cape bulls in Africa. These beasts you don't mess up with them. Lions don't mess up with them. We're talking about like 2,000, 3,000 kilogram creatures that have nothing but, when they decide to be bent on attack, they're vicious. And it says that he's been encircled by them. Now, of course, in your case, you're not encircled by bulls, but by dogs that look like bulls pretty much. And they say here, they open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaws. And you lay me in the dust of death. Like you're experiencing, look, you basically thought, like, I'm done. And then verse 16, for dogs have surrounded me. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. And then in verse 19, you would say, but you, O Lord, be not far off. You, my help, hasten to my assistance. Deliver me from the sword, the only life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth, from the horns of the wild oxen. You answer me. And because of that, the psalmist did exactly what you're doing, because in verse 22 it says, and I will tell of your name to my brethren. In the midst of the assembly, I will praise you.
Oh, beautiful.
Isn't that story so similar to what you have experienced? Being surrounded, feeling helpless, trusting in God before, asking God for help in the middle, and being delivered by God at the end. So I find it fascinating that you were able to experience a feeling and emotion that the Messiah himself was experienced. Of course, he was being surrounded by dogs in the sense of by heathen, by pagan people, by unclean human beings, evildoers. But it is a similar feeling of being encircled by wild animals. And in your case, by vicious, aggressive shepherd dogs trying to protect their flock. So, Casper, we have just, this 1 minute left. Is there any final words that you would like to share that can encourage someone that perhaps is going to or will go to a similar experience?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As I was going through this, I was very afraid. I was very anxious. I was panicking. I was not behaving rationally because I was literally afraid of my life. But as I prayed, that was when I felt this incredible peace, and I saw God was moving. He was literally saving my life. So my encouragement is, if this is something you can see yourself in, if you see yourself in this story where you feel distant or you have this massive attack, allow God to work in you. And just like I read in Proverbs 18:10, allow God to be your fortress. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are safe. So as I prayed, that was when I felt this incredible feeling of love, of protection, of God's care and God's watchman. And I saw that in that experience. And from being anxious, I felt completely at peace and calm because I knew God had won this battle for me. Just like he promised he will do for all of us in Exodus 14:14. Here we read, the Lord will fight for you and you shall hold your peace. Just like I did. I couldn't fight anything. I had to give the battle to God, and he delivered me from the dogs, from my adversity.
Casper, what a story. We're so glad that you are alive and in one piece, and we're so glad as well that God was able to save you from this absolutely horrible threat even to your life. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us, that story of God's faithfulness and that story of deliverance. I'm sure that it is going to be able to encourage a lot of people in their journey. That was the story of Casper. Yeah, it was a pre-recorded interview, as you probably have seen. Casper was here with us about last month or so, and he had some amazing stories. That one about him being delivered by this fierce dog attack, this is an amazing story. And thank you so much for listening to that one.